The morning my husband left for his business trip, he kissed my forehead like nothing was wrong. That was the first lie of many. I remember standing in the kitchen, holding my coffee mug so tight my knuckles turned white. He said he'd be gone 5 days. Important meetings. Investors flying in. Big opportunity for us. For us. I watched him load his suitcase into the trunk. He didn't know I already knew. He didn't know I had screenshots. Photos. Flight confirmations that weren't for Chicago like he claimed. They were for Cancun. 2 tickets. Plus 4 more. Her parents. Her sister. Her brother-in-law. A romantic getaway turned family vacation. He thought I was stupid. He thought I would stay home and water the plants while he played husband to someone else. What he didn't know was that the day he drove away smiling was the day I stopped being his wife. I didn't cry. Not that morning. Not when his car disappeared down the street. Not when my phone buzzed with a text from him, "Love you. Don't miss me too much." I simply put my mug down, walked upstairs, and opened the folder I had hidden in my closet for months. Divorce papers. Property documents. The house listing confirmation. Because while he was busy planning his secret trip, I was planning my exit. You don't wake up one day and decide to destroy your marriage over a suspicion. This wasn't suspicion. This was a pattern. The late-night work emergencies. The sudden gym obsession. The way he turned his phone face down every time it lit up. The new password. The cold distance in our bed. And the perfume. That wasn't mine. I gave him chances. I asked directly. Calmly. "Is there someone else?" He looked me in the eyes and said no. That was when something inside me changed. Not heartbreak. Clarity. When I found the booking confirmation for 6 people under his email account, yes, he was careless. I didn't scream. I didn't confront him. I started preparing. If he could build a second life behind my back, I could build a better one without him. The house was in both our names, but I had inherited money from my grandmother. Enough to make smart moves if I played it right. I contacted a lawyer quietly. I documented everything. Financial statements. Messages. Evidence. Adultery has consequences in some states. He thought he was being clever. But I was patient. The day he left for Cancun with her and her entire family, I called my realtor. The house went on the market that same afternoon. You'd be surprised how fast a well-priced home in a good neighborhood sells. Especially when the staging is perfect. I removed every trace of him. Our wedding photos disappeared first. Then the framed vacation pictures. The smiling Christmas portraits. I packed them into boxes labeled past. Every drawer I emptied felt like reclaiming oxygen. Every closet I cleared felt lighter. He sent me beach selfies while I wrapped our dishes in newspaper. He FaceTimed me from what he claimed was a conference dinner. I could see the ocean behind him in the reflection of his sunglasses. He thought I couldn't tell. He underestimated me. By day 3 of his romantic family getaway, we had 3 offers on the house. By day 4, I accepted one. By day 5, I had wired a deposit on a condo overseas. I'd always wanted to live abroad. Before him. Before I shrank my dreams to fit his comfort. Before I stopped applying for jobs in other countries because he didn't want to leave his hometown. Funny how brave you become when you have nothing left to lose. The buyers wanted a quick close. Cash. No complications. Perfect. While he toasted margaritas with her father, I signed closing documents. While he shared hotel breakfasts with her mother, I booked a one-way ticket. While he lay beside her at night, I slept peacefully for the first time in months. Not because I wasn't hurt, but because I was done begging for honesty. On the morning they were scheduled to return, I stood in the empty living room of what used to be our home. My suitcase sat by the door. The walls echoed when I walked. There was no couch. No dining table. No bed upstairs. I sold most of it. Donated the rest. I kept only what mattered: my passport, my grandmother's jewelry, my laptop, and my dignity. I left one thing behind. An envelope on the kitchen counter. Inside were the divorce papers. And copies of the house sale documents. He landed at 3:40 p.m. I know because he texted me. Just landed. Missed you. I was already at the airport myself by then. Different terminal. Different airline. Different destination. My phone buzzed again while I waited at the gate. Why is there a lockbox on the front door? I didn't answer. 5 minutes later, call me. Now. Then, what is going on? I imagined the scene. Him pulling into the driveway with her family in tow. Maybe he had promised to show them the house one day. Maybe he told them how lucky he was to own property in such a nice area. I imagine him walking up to the front door, confused by the unfamiliar lockbox. I imagine the real estate sign still in the yard. I imagine his face when he stepped inside and heard nothing but emptiness. No furniture. No wife. Just silence. And an envelope. My phone rang. I watched his name flash across the screen. Over and over. I let it ring. He left a voicemail. Then another. By the time I boarded my flight, there were 12 missed calls. In his final message, his voice wasn't angry. It was panicked. What did you do? I didn't ruin his life. I simply removed myself from it. People think revenge is loud, dramatic, explosive. But sometimes the strongest move is quiet. I didn't scream at him at the airport. I didn't expose him on social media. I didn't beg his lover to stay away. I sold the house. I moved abroad. I left him with nothing but consequences. As the plane lifted off the runway, I looked down at the shrinking city beneath me. That city held our wedding day, our first fight, our broken promises, and now it held his humiliation. I won't pretend I wasn't scared. Starting over in another country at 38 isn't a fairy tale. It's terrifying. I didn't know anyone there. I didn't have a job lined up yet. I had savings, yes, but no guarantees. But I had something more powerful than guarantees. Freedom. When we landed 12 hours later, my phone exploded with messages. Anger first. How could you do this? Then bargaining. We can fix this. Then blame. You're overreacting. Then desperation. Please call me. I turned my phone off. Not because I hated him, but because I finally loved myself more. You see, this wasn't just about a trip. It wasn't just about a mistress and her family vacation. It was about the years I made excuses. The nights I felt invisible in my own marriage. The subtle disrespect that chipped away at my confidence until I almost forgot who I was. Almost. When I stepped out of the airport into a city that didn't know my name, the air felt different. Crisp. Honest. No shared memories. No lies embedded in the walls. Just possibility. I took a taxi to my new condo. Small. Modern. Overlooking the water. Not as big as the house we sold. But it was mine. Completely mine. That night, jet-lagged and emotionally drained, I lay on the mattress I had arranged to be delivered earlier that day. No bed frame yet. Just a simple setup. And I finally cried. Not for him. For the version of me who tolerated less than she deserved. For the years spent trying to prove I was enough. For loving someone who treated loyalty like an option. But my tears weren't weak. They were cleansing. Because this wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of the part where I stopped shrinking. And back home, in an empty house that no longer belonged to him, my husband was finally facing a silence louder than any argument we ever had. He wanted answers. He wanted control. He wanted me back in place. What he didn't realize yet was that I wasn't running away. I was running towards something better. And this time, I wasn't asking anyone for permission. The first morning I woke up in my new country, I didn't recognize the ceiling above me. For a second, I panicked. Then I remembered. I chose this. The room was quiet except for distant traffic and waves hitting the shoreline below my balcony. No tension in the air. No cold silence between two people pretending to still be in love. Just space. I reached for my phone. 37 missed calls. 14 voicemails. More than 50 messages. He had moved from panic to rage sometime during the night. You embarrassed me. Her family was there. Do you have any idea what you've done? I stared at that last one for a long time. Yes. I knew exactly what I had done. I had stopped protecting a man who never protected me. There was one message that almost made me respond. We need to talk like adults. Adults. That word used to intimidate me. It used to make me question myself. Maybe I was being dramatic. Maybe I was too emotional. Maybe I should have confronted him differently. But adults don't lie for months. Adults don't take their lover and her entire family on vacation while their wife stays home. Adults don't gamble their marriage on arrogance. I put the phone down without replying. Instead, I opened my laptop and checked the confirmation from my attorney. The divorce filing had been officially submitted the morning after he left. He had been served electronically the same day he landed back home. He must have opened that email after he found the empty house. That image brought me an unexpected calm. Not satisfaction. Closure. I made coffee in my small kitchen, standing barefoot on cool tile floors. The condo wasn't luxurious, but it was bright. Sunlight poured through wide windows, touching everything without asking permission. I walked out onto the balcony. Below me, strangers lived their lives without knowing mine had just collapsed and rebuilt itself in the same week. That anonymity felt powerful. Back home, everyone knew us as the stable couple, the successful couple, the couple who hosted holidays and posted smiling photos. No one saw the distance. No one saw the way he flinched when I reached for his phone. No one saw how I stopped laughing at his jokes because they weren't funny anymore. My phone rang again. This time I answered. Not because I missed him, but because I wanted to hear his voice without fear. He didn't say hello. What is wrong with you? His tone wasn't broken. It was offended. I leaned against the balcony railing and looked at the ocean while he spoke. You sold our house? You moved? Are you trying to ruin me? I let him finish. Then I said something I had rehearsed in my head for months. I didn't ruin you. I refused to share you. Silence. I could hear him breathing hard. You're overreacting. It was just a trip. With your lover. He hesitated. That was all the confirmation I ever needed. It wasn't serious. You brought her family. Another pause. That doesn't mean anything. It means everything. For years, I would have cried during this conversation. My voice would have shaken. I would have tried to convince him to admit the truth gently. Not anymore. You humiliated me, he snapped. Do you know how this looks? I almost laughed. How it looks? I repeated. You're worried about how it looks? There it was again. Reputation over loyalty. Image over integrity. He tried a different angle. You blindsided me. No, I said calmly. You underestimated me. That line hit him harder than yelling ever could. He shifted from anger to bargaining in seconds. Let's slow down. We can fix this. I'll end it. You should have ended it before it started. It didn't mean anything. Then why risk everything for it? He didn't answer. Because he didn't have one. I closed my eyes and let the breeze steady me. I'm not coming back, I said. You think you can just start over somewhere else? Yes. You won't last. That one almost hurt. Almost. But here's the thing about starting over. Once you've survived betrayal, fear loses its power. I already lasted, I replied. I lasted through the lies. And then I hung up. My hands were shaking afterward. Strength doesn't mean you don't feel anything. It means you move forward anyway. The rest of that week was filled with practical decisions. I opened a local bank account. I met with a recruiter about consulting work. I walked unfamiliar streets and memorized grocery store aisles. Every small task felt like a declaration. I exist outside of him. Meanwhile, he escalated. He contacted mutual friends. He told them I had a breakdown. He hinted that I was unstable, that I made a sudden, irrational decision. I expected that. A man who can justify an affair can justify rewriting history. One evening, I received a message from his sister. I don't know what happened, but he's not okay. I stared at the screen for a long time. For years, I carried the emotional weight of our marriage. If he was stressed, I fixed it. If he was angry, I softened it. If he was distant, I tried harder. Now he wasn't okay. And it wasn't my responsibility. I typed a simple reply. I hope he finds what he's looking for. And I meant it. Because what he was looking for was validation without accountability. And I was no longer available for that role. A week after I arrived, the final transfer from the house sale cleared in my account. Seeing that number made everything real. That house wasn't just walls and furniture. It was Sunday mornings, burnt pancakes, movie nights, the illusion of permanence. Letting it go wasn't revenge. It was release. Late that night, I received a message I didn't expect. Not from him. From her. I didn't know he was still fully committed to you. I read it twice. Interesting choice of words. Still fully committed. As if marriage is something you can be partially inside. I didn't respond right away. I wanted to react from strength, not emotion. The next morning, I sent one sentence. He was committed enough to share a mortgage. Then I blocked her. I wasn't going to compete for a man who treated commitment like a flexible concept. Days turned into routines. Morning coffee on the balcony. Job interviews. Exploring new neighborhoods. At night, loneliness crept in sometimes. I won't pretend it didn't. 38 years of shared habits don't disappear overnight. I missed having someone in the kitchen while I cooked. I missed automatic goodnight kisses. But I didn't miss doubt. I didn't miss checking phone records. I didn't miss wondering if I was enough. One afternoon, my attorney called. He's contesting some financial details, she said. Of course he was. Not the betrayal. The money. We went over numbers calmly. Everything was documented. Everything was legal. He could argue, but he couldn't erase evidence. After the call, I sat quietly for a while. This wasn't going to be quick or clean. But neither was healing. That evening, as the sun set over the water, my phone buzzed again. A short message from him. I never thought you'd actually leave. I read it slowly. That was the truth underneath everything. He never thought I would choose myself. He thought I would threaten, cry, forgive, adjust. He never imagined I would act. I didn't reply, because some realizations are meant to echo unanswered. As darkness settled over the city, I stood at the balcony again, looking at lights flicker on in buildings around me. Each window held a story. Some happy, some broken, some rebuilding. Mine was rebuilding. Not loudly, not dramatically, but deliberately. He lost a house. He lost control. He lost the version of me that tolerated disrespect. And I gained something far more valuable. The ability to walk away without begging to be chosen. I don't know what he's telling people now. I don't know if he regrets it or just regrets getting caught. What I do know is this. When he stepped off that plane expecting a wife waiting at home, he found consequences instead. And while he's trying to understand how everything slipped through his fingers, I'm learning how strong I am without anyone holding them. Strength sounds powerful when you say it out loud. Living it is quieter. It's waking up alone and not reaching for your phone to check who he texted at midnight. It's walking past couples holding hands and not feeling like you lost a competition. It's choosing peace over proving a point. 2 weeks after I moved, I finally started sleeping through the night. No more 2 a.m. anxiety spirals. No more replaying old conversations in my head, wondering where exactly things shifted. Because deep down, I always knew where they shifted. The first time he lied and I accepted it. That's where it began. I used to believe marriages collapse because of one dramatic betrayal. That's not true. They collapse in inches. In small dismissals. In eye rolls. In your overthinking. In secrets protected more fiercely than vows. One afternoon, I received a package forwarded from our old address. It was one of the few boxes I had shipped instead of sold. Inside were photo albums I couldn't bring myself to throw away. I sat on the floor of my condo, back against the couch, flipping through years of our life. There we were on our honeymoon, laughing under a waterfall. There we were in matching sweaters at Christmas. There we were at a friend's wedding, his arm wrapped tightly around my waist. Looking at those pictures didn't break me. What hurt was realizing how long I had been trying to recreate a version of him that no longer existed. Or maybe never did. My phone buzzed again. His name still flashed across the screen sometimes, even though I had muted his calls. This time, it wasn't anger. It was exhaustion. I made a mistake. That was the message. No explanation. No ownership. Just a soft attempt to reopen the door. I stared at it for a long time. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is booking the wrong flight. A secret trip with your lover and her family is a decision. And decisions reveal character. I didn't reply. Instead, I went for a walk. The city had started to feel familiar. The barista at the corner cafe recognized me. The florist down the street smiled when I passed. I had joined a small networking group for women building careers abroad. For the first time in years, I introduced myself without attaching his name to mine. Not his wife. Not part of a couple. Just me. And that felt strange. But good. A few days later, my attorney called again. He wants mediation, she said. Of course he did. Mediation meant conversation. It meant proximity. It meant a chance for him to negotiate not just assets, but emotions. I agreed to virtual mediation. Not because I wanted reconciliation, but because I wanted finality. The day of the call, I sat at my dining table, laptop open, hands steady. When his face appeared on the screen, something surprising happened. I didn't feel heartbreak. I felt distance. He looked tired, thinner, less certain. For years, he carried himself with confidence that bordered on arrogance. Now there was a crack in it. He tried to smile. You look different. I am, I said. The mediator walked us through financial details first. Numbers, percentages, agreements. He argued over small things. Furniture value, minor investments, petty points that once would have triggered me. Now they just revealed him. At one point, he stopped discussing numbers and looked directly at me. Are you really throwing everything away? That question used to terrify me. Everything. As if everything was still intact. I didn't throw it away, I replied calmly. You stepped out of it. The mediator cleared his throat and redirected the conversation. But the truth had already landed. After 2 hours, we reached a preliminary agreement. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't cinematic. It was paperwork, and sometimes paperwork is the most powerful closure there is. When the call ended, I closed my laptop and sat in silence. I expected to cry. I didn't. Instead, I felt something unfamiliar. Lightness. Not joy. Not revenge. Relief. That evening, I did something small but symbolic. I removed my wedding ring. I hadn't worn it since I left, but I had kept it in my jewelry box. I held it in my palm for a long time. It wasn't just metal. It was promises. It was hope. It was years of trying. Then I placed it back in the box and closed the lid. Not dramatically. Just deliberately. A week later, I received news I didn't expect. He had moved out of the house temporarily to stay with a friend. The same house he thought he would return to after Cancun. The same house he believed would always be waiting. Consequences echo. His sister called me again one evening. I think he thought you'd come back after you calmed down. I almost smiled. This wasn't a tantrum. This was clarity. I didn't leave to make a point, I told her gently. I left because I reached my limit. There's a difference. As weeks turned into a month, something inside me shifted further. I stopped checking his social media. Stopped wondering if he was still seeing her. Stopped caring who he blamed. Because healing isn't loud. It's subtle. It's waking up one day and realizing you didn't think about them first thing in the morning. It's laughing at dinner with new friends and not feeling guilty for moving forward. It's looking in the mirror and recognizing yourself again. One evening, while organizing my desk, I found an old note he once wrote me. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. I read it twice. Then I folded it and placed it in a drawer. Maybe I was. But I finally understood something powerful. Being the best thing that ever happened to someone doesn't mean they'll treat you that way. Love without respect is just attachment. And I was no longer attached. A few days later, my phone buzzed again. A simple message. I miss you. No anger. No blame. Just that, for a brief second, memory tried to soften me. The early years. The comfort. The shared jokes. But then I remembered the screenshots. The flight confirmations. The 6 tickets. And the empty house. Missing me wasn't the same as valuing me. I typed one sentence. I hope you learn from this. Then I blocked his number completely. Not out of hatred. Out of self-preservation. That night, I stood on my balcony again, watching the city lights reflect off the water. When I first arrived, I was running from betrayal. Now I was walking toward something else. Independence. Clarity. Peace. He thought I was reacting. He thought I was emotional. He thought I would circle back. What he never understood was this. I didn't leave because he cheated. I left because I finally believed I deserved more. And somewhere back home, he's probably still trying to figure out how he lost everything in 1 week. But it wasn't 1 week. It was years of small choices that led to one decisive moment. And while he's replaying the past, I'm building a future he no longer has access to. The final stage of leaving someone isn't the paperwork. It isn't the arguments. It isn't even the silence. It's the moment you stop imagining them in your future. That realization came quietly one morning while I was sitting at a cafe near the water, reviewing a contract for a consulting project I had just secured. It wasn't a small project either. It was the kind of opportunity one used to pass up because it required travel, long hours, independence. All the things that once made him uncomfortable. I remember looking at my name on the agreement. Just my name. No shared last name attached to his. No joint decision. No checking in for approval. And instead of fear, I felt expansion. Around that time, the divorce proceedings moved toward finalization. The mediation agreement held. The financial settlement was signed. The last shared account was closed. One email confirmed it officially. The marriage was legally over. I stared at that message longer than I expected to. 14 years reduced to a document. It didn't feel tragic. It felt complete. Later that evening, I walked home slowly, letting the reality settle into my bones. Couples passed me on the sidewalk. Friends laughed outside restaurants. Life continued the way it always does, indifferent to personal endings. That used to scare me. Now it comforted me. Because it meant my story wasn't frozen in that betrayal. It was still moving. A few days after everything was finalized, I received a call from an unknown number with my home area code. I almost ignored it, but I answered. It was him. Not calling to argue. Not calling to negotiate. His voice sounded different. Quieter. I signed the final documents, he said. I know, I replied. There was a long pause. I never thought it would actually end. There it was again. Expectation. He expected forgiveness. He expected tolerance. He expected that no matter what he did, I would stay anchored in place. I did, I said gently. Another silence. Then something I didn't anticipate. I'm sorry. Not defensive. Not strategic. Just simple. For a moment, I let that settle. I didn't rush to accept it. I didn't dismiss it either. Thank you, I replied. That was all. Because apologies don't rewind time. They acknowledge it. He tried once more. Is there any part of you that would consider? No, I said calmly. Not harsh. Not angry. Just certain. There's a strength in certainty that doesn't need volume. I hope you find what you're looking for, I added. And I meant it. Because what he was searching for was validation, excitement, ego reinforcement. None of those things build stability. He exhaled slowly. I didn't think you'd be this strong. I almost smiled. I didn't either, I said. And then we said goodbye. Not dramatic. Not cinematic. Just finished. After that call, something unexpected happened. I didn't feel victorious. I felt free. Freedom isn't loud. It's subtle. It's grocery shopping without calculating someone else's preferences. It's booking a spontaneous weekend trip without explaining yourself. It's choosing furniture that reflects your taste alone. Over the next few months, my life expanded in ways I couldn't have imagined while I was still inside that marriage. My consulting project led to another. I traveled for work. I met people who knew nothing about my past, only my capability. I built friendships with women who had also rebuilt their lives after difficult endings. We didn't sit around complaining about men. We talked about business, travel, growth. We talked about who we were becoming. One evening, at a rooftop gathering, someone asked me casually, "So what brought you here?" I could have said betrayal. I could have said divorce. Instead, I said, I decided to start over. And that felt powerful, because the narrative shifted. I wasn't abandoned. I wasn't replaced. I wasn't humiliated. I chose change. Months later, I received news through mutual friends that he and the other woman didn't last. I wasn't surprised. Affairs built on secrecy rarely survive daylight. But here's the part that surprised me. I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt indifference. That's how I knew I had healed. Revenge would have required emotional attachment. Indifference meant release. One afternoon, while reorganizing my closet, I found the envelope containing my old wedding ring. I opened it and held the ring again. This time, it didn't represent pain. It represented growth. I decided to sell it. Not out of bitterness, but because I wanted the metal to become something else. I used the money to book a solo trip to a place I had always dreamed of visiting. Standing at the edge of that coastline weeks later, wind in my hair, sun warming my face, I thought about the woman I was the morning he left for Cancun. Tight grip on a coffee mug. Heart heavy. Waiting for proof. She thought her world was ending. She didn't realize it was expanding. If I could speak to her now, I would tell her this. You are not crazy for noticing distance. You are not dramatic for demanding respect. You are not weak for loving deeply. But you must be brave enough to leave when love is no longer mutual. Back home, he may still be explaining what happened. He may still be replaying that moment when he opened the front door to an empty house. He may still be wondering how everything slipped away. But I know the truth. Nothing slipped. It shifted. Because the moment he chose secrecy over loyalty, he unknowingly gave me permission to choose myself. And I did. Today, when I wake up in my condo overlooking the water, I no longer feel like someone who escaped something. I feel like someone who stepped into her own life. There is no anger left. No desire to prove a point. No need to check who he's with or what he's doing. There is only forward motion. The strongest part of my story isn't that I sold the house. It isn't that I moved abroad. It isn't even that I left him shocked and scrambling. The strongest part is this. When faced with betrayal, I didn't beg to be chosen. I chose myself. And that decision didn't just change my address. It changed my identity. I am no longer the woman who waits at home while her husband lies about business trips. I am the woman who builds her own future without asking for permission. And this time, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. If this story moved you, shocked you, or made you question everything, don't just watch and scroll. Real stories like this deserve real conversations. Drop a comment and tell me what you would have done in her place. Would you walk away or fight back? Your voice matters here. And if you're drawn to powerful, emotional, truth-revealing stories that expose hidden lives and unforgettable betrayals, make sure you subscribe right now. Because the next story might hit even closer to home. Like this video if you believe the truth always deserves to be heard. Subscribe so you never miss the next story that could change the way you see love, trust, and loyalty. This isn't just storytelling. This is reality uncovered.